Hi everyone, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra, back again with Tim Forsey, the barrister extraordinaire, the criminal defense attorney, also the guy that I got my NFA trust from, and you should get your NFA trust from, especially now.
Those are way more fun than defending people.
Right, no kidding. Especially now that, cans are coming back in like 2 hours.
Huge, yeah. I got my last can in, I think 3 days. So
bang like that.
And that was on a trust.
That's cool. Yeah. And I, you know what, I just decided, we were talking just a little bit off camera, so why don't we go with this again? I have another one to jump in with. And it's a good one, but it's, well, wait a minute, John, hiring an attorney like this is expensive. Hiring somebody with this, now you're not paying for his time, you're paying for his expertise, or her expertise. I didn't want to be sexist there. But what about public defenders? And is a public defender, if I can't, you're guaranteed you have the right to counsel. Counsel is a right. Yep. And so therefore the state will pay for counsel. But I think we get this idea that public defenders are incompetent or are bad lawyers. And I want to talk to Tim about that. Yeah. To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below. So Tim, what do you think of that idea that public defenders are bad lawyers?
I think it's horse hockey. I think some of the best trial lawyers I've ever seen are public defenders. Right? They're in trial a whole lot more than private attorneys because they have a lot more caseload. Right? So they're really busy, which is one of the problems. But in terms of their competence, their knowledge of the rules of evidence, their knowledge of objection skills, their knowledge of voir dire, all that stuff. They're oftentimes some of the best lawyers I've ever seen. They really are. And some of them love being public defenders and they spend their whole career there. Some of them want to use it as some sort of stepping stone into political life or private practice. And they want to get in and do 3 or 4 years and say that they tried 61 trials and then get out and make some money. You see that a lot.
Well, they can get 60 trials in 3 or 4 years.
They can do a trial a month, some of those guys, you bet. So, but what you're not getting with a public defender is access. Attention sometimes because they're so, literally I might have, 1 trial a year, maybe 2 trials a year because I'm trying everything I can not to go to trial. I want to get the case dismissed or get the best plea offer I can. So I'm trying to minimize the number of trials. They don't have that ability. They offer a plea and if it's not taken, they start prepping for trial. So they're trying cases all the time and they might have, one case where they're in trial and another trial that starts in 10 days and 3 other cases that are in the pipeline and they're trying to talk to their witnesses and they're trying to meet their clients and they're just absolutely stressed out in terms of how their time is stretched. One thing that people will tell you, the biggest complaint I hear about public defenders is, I went to 4 hearings before I finally hired you. I had 4 different public defenders. Because at the early stages of a trial, it's just we're just doing coverage, what they call coverage. You're just going to a hearing and you're basically there to make sure that there's somebody just to say what you want. And it's not considered to be a particularly important hearing, so we just send some other baby public defender down to cover that one, a different baby public defender to cover this one. And people are getting really freaked out because they don't even know who their lawyer is. They're having to introduce themselves 3 minutes before the hearing starts to another lawyer they've never met. And that stresses defendants out a lot, it would me. That doesn't mean any of those lawyers are bad lawyers. It just means that that's the way that the office is structured to handle that unbelievable caseload that private attorneys don't have.
Well, and I think we want our citizens, right? So remember, the jury stands between the state and the defendant, right? The jury is, in theory, protecting people from abuse by the state. If we go back to the founding of our country, one of the biggest problems was trials that weren't fair, that were conducted in front of a judge that was employed by the state and was they didn't have a right to confront their accusers, and so we put this trial system in place that says, no, wait a minute, if the state wants to punish somebody, we're going to protect them from that and make the state prove that they should.
And that's another thing that people do get so concerned about. If I have a public defender, I'm sitting in trial and the judge is being paid by the state and the prosecutor is being paid by the state and my attorney is being paid by the state, and people kind of lose a little confidence there. It's like, I realize he's supposed to be on my side, but is he really? And trust me, he is. Or she is. But there's that fear, that prejudice, that bias there, yeah.
And I've never met a public defender, and I've met several, and I've never met one that isn't passionate about about justice.
Yep.
I've never met one that's doing less than because, I paid by the state and I don't mind if people go to prison. No.
That.
In fact, I had a case, Tim, this is interesting. I don't know if you knew this, but where I had a case that went to trial, and the prosecutor on that case was a contract prosecutor on a murder case. Crazy weird, right?
Interesting. I've heard of it before, but weird.
Weird. From way over, he was way over in Mississippi, and he came all the way out to the West Coast for a trial. I hear from him about 4 months later, he sends me an email. Hey, John, can you give me a consult on a case? And I was thinking it was a prosecutor. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, no, I've left the prosecutor's office, and I'm now actually working in the public defender's office.
Wow, okay.
So, oh, well, that's interesting. A nice guy, and we'd had a good interaction. Otherwise, I actually, on that case, I after the case that he tried in front of me, I kind of chewed him out after the case got over email because he did some dirty pool to me. And I said, hey man, you're better than that. Like keep it, keep the blows above the waist.
He obviously respected that.
And he came back and he said, John, you're right. And I'm gonna do better at that. So then he called me for
an honest lawyer, folks. How is that?
Weird, right? And a good dude, and needed a consult on this other case because he was working in the public defender's office. And I said, hey, what made you go over to the public defender's office? And he said, I had several years, 5-6 years of experience in the prosecutor's office, and I wanted to experience the legal system from the other side and helping people. And I was like, wow, that's pretty honorable.
Yeah, good for him.
That's pretty cool. Of course, he's like, look, I've got 40 cases on my docket right now. And so is there any way, like, John, it's a pain to get funding for an expert, and I don't know that this one is a self-defense case. Is there any way you could just look over the video evidence? We have a video of what happened here and give me your thoughts. Sure, no problem. I always do consults like that.
Yeah.
I'll give you an hour or two of my time.
And you knew this guy, and you knew he was honorable.
Yeah, sure. And in that case, I had to go back to him and say, friend, you don't have a self-defense case.
You backed the wrong horse here, yeah.
Well, no, and he said, no, I kind of thought so. I just, I wanted to ask because some other people were saying that might be self-defense. I was like, you see this in the video, you see that, you see this. No, what you have here is an aggressor who is, gonna eat a charge there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That helps me to give him some counsel. Great, cool. I have a case that I'm working right now out of the public defender's office that poor lawyer is so overwhelmed with stuff. I can send him an email, but I ain't gonna hear back from him for a while because he'll put that on his to-do list while he's in this other case trial, while he's prepping for another trial.
And if you guys are hearing us talk about this, so when you're an expert witness, and I've been an expert witness for a public defender as well, it's really hard to get the funding for that. It's very difficult. They have to get advance clearance for your fees. And so that means that guys like us, if we're working for a public defender, we either have to really lower our fees, which we can't afford to do. I mean, I've got a busy law practice. I can't take time away from my other clients to work this case. If I'm going to do that, I have to get paid the same. And they might not be able to get the funding. If you hire a private attorney, they're going to have access to private expert witnesses that are probably going to cost more, but they're accessible, and you know exactly what they're going to say, and you've worked with them before, and they're the height of their profession. That's who you want. And public defenders have a hard time reining those folks in simply because of funding, and that's one of the problems with public defenders. Not that they're bad lawyers; they're hamstrung by the funding problems that their system has. So
well, and like Tim says, he's got a busy law practice, right? So if he's going to be an expert, and you've done expert witness work in self-defense, you gotta I gotta suspend all the other stuff in my other clients' caseloads so that I can deal with this. For me, running active self-protection is a 60-hour-a-week endeavor for me. We put up 14 videos a week between the two channels. I have to do all the research for that, film them, edit them, get them uploaded, do all the other stuff. So when I go, hey, you want me at a trial for a week, and the best outcomes come not when the expert just flies in, testifies, and flies home, but shows up for trial prep, for voir dire, is there helping the attorney with cross-examination questions.
If you can be there with the expert witness from the state to see what they've said, it's much more helpful for you to massage your testimony. Yeah, absolutely.
And as a expert witness, I'm not subject to sequestering like material witnesses are. In fact, just the opposite. No, it's good for that. And if it's really rare for a judge to sequester experts way. So really rare and wrong. So, sorry, Your Honors, if you're a judge that's watching this, I'm just saying, it is a cause that you can get appeal on, that, wait a minute, you didn't provide me with adequate counsel because the judge didn't allow us to have appropriate counsel there. Anyway, it's a long shot, but so I love public defenders, and I got nothing but love for them, but why do you pay for a private attorney? Well, because the access to the attorney, the access to their Rolodex, dated reference, the access to...
you can explain that to the kids, what that is?
The access to the contacts folder in their phone.
There you go. Exactly. The
Okay,
old
where are my Gen X and Boomers at?
filled
who
with
remember,
yellow stickies throughout the whole thing.
Who remember Rolodexes, right? I remember my grandma's Rolodex. Anybody remember having a phone that hung on the wall that went
With a party line, baby.
You're old. Check your will. I love public defenders, but they are hard to work with, and so you got two choices here. If God forbid you get in a gunfight, I want a private attorney. Absolutely, I do, and this is why I pay for firearms legal protection. This is why I have FLP, because they've got that financial piece covered, and I don't got to worry about using a public defender, who are good people, but are very busy people, and therefore you get somebody with a ton of trial experience, probably, unless they're a baby, which they probably shouldn't be first chair.
Correct. They wouldn't be on a major case.
They wouldn't be on a major case, but that first chair guy or gal is either got 48 of those and is going one to the next, and depending on the juniors to brief them in, or is just so busy that they don't know what to do. So.
Yeah, your access is limited. You're never going to get a cell number. You're never going to talk to them on a weekend. You're never going to talk to them after 6 p.m. I talk to my clients on the weekend at least as much as I do during the week. So, that's just not something you get with a public defender. Does not mean they're bad lawyers. They're generally great lawyers. So, when people, if you want to go with a public defender, a lot of private attorneys use that as a marketing method. Well, if you want to go with a public defender and wind up in prison, feel free. I don't ever do that. I never, ever badmouth them. It's the things that we've talked about are the advantages. So.
And I love the fact that we have them. And the reason that I love that we have them is that they are a guarantee under the Constitution. You have the right to counsel, and that's good. And in fact, to the earlier stuff, I'm working 2 cases right now for the United States Marine Corps, of all things.
Neat.
And guess what? Then the judge is paid for by the Department of Defense. The entire jury being paid by the Department of Defense, because they have to be, service members.
They might throw a token squid in there once in a while. But
Department of the Navy and all that stuff. And the prosecutor is being paid. He's a judge advocate general. The defense attorney is being paid by the DOD, all that stuff. And in fact, as far as I know this, I'm the first use of force expert that the Marine Corps Defense Services has ever hired.
Wow.
We had to find a path. We had to find a process to hire me. We had to create it.
They'd never done it before.
Nope, that never
That's
had
really
it before.
cool, man.
So it's been an interesting thing, and
So you're going to be play the Jack Nicholson role and
no, I'm gonna. The funny part is, there's going to be a bunch of Marines there, and I'm going to stand up. Hi, I was a squid for a little while, and now I talk about guns a lot. And testifying under the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the rules of court-martial is kind of an interesting thing.
It's totally different.
And you can call it. So they all are public defenders here, and passionate. Let me tell you, I can tell you that in both of the cases that I'm working right now, I'm not going to talk about the details of those cases at all, but those functionally not public, but Marine Corps defenders, defending Marines, are passionate about it. Do they have a heavy caseload? Darn right they do. And now, of course, when it comes down to serious stuff like this, when we're going to actual courts-martial, they get to focus a little bit. But I will tell you, getting funding, guess what? Every time we got to do something, we got to go run up the chain of command and find funding and get back, and run up and get back, and don't do a darn thing until we've got authorization, and only do what we have authorization for, which I respect. When you have a private attorney, we don't have those constraints. We can do things at a much better pace and with much more resourcing. Now, who's paying for that resourcing? Either you or FLP. Listen, if FLP is not your thing, they're my thing, but if they're not yours, another company, fine. I really am fine with that. Have something rather than nothing, but have that. So public defenders, good in our book, very limited.
Yeah, don't badmouth them. They're good folks. They're good lawyers.